welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We aim for those surprising facts, maybe a little humor, just to keep you hooked.
Absolutely.
Because the world feels like it's on fast forward, doesn't it? AI is just reshaping everything.
It really is. And economic policies causing ripples.
Exactly. And geopolitics keeping us on our toes. You've sent us a whole stack of sources. AI landscape, U.S. economy, political shifts, global news.
A real mix.
Yeah. So our mission today, take all that, find the gold nuggets, connect the dots for you. Okay, let's unpack this.
Indeed. And what we're looking at here is this really fascinating interplay. You've got tech disruption, monetary policy challenges, and this complex global backdrop. It's all happening right now in real time.
Okay, so let's jump right into the future then, because AI, wow, it's moving so fast. We have to talk about DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, yes.
If you haven't heard the name, you probably will soon.
Yeah.
It's a Chinese AI startup, pretty new, founded July 2023.
By Liang Wenfeng, associated with that hedge fund, High Flyer.
Right. And their model, DeepSeek R1, released January 2025. It's making serious waves.
It really is. The specs are impressive.
Yeah, 671 billion parameters. I mean, just think about that number.
Huge. And that mixture of experts architecture, the MOE.
Which makes it super efficient, right? And the performance reports say it's rivaling, maybe even beating OpenAI's O1 in things like math.
And coding, which is crucial.
Definitely. But here's the real kicker, I think. The cost.
Yes, the cost.
Training is estimated at just, what, $5 to $6 million?
$5 to $6 million. Compare that to the hundreds of millions for GPT-4 or similar models. It's a fraction.
A tiny fraction.
And that cost efficiency, well, it's truly disruptive. What's fascinating here, the why behind the impact, it's their decision to open source the model weights.
Under the MIT license, which is very permissive.
Exactly. That's huge. It lets developers everywhere just grab it and build on it. It speeds everything up across the whole AI ecosystem.
People are calling it an Android moment for AI.
That's the comparison, yeah. It sort of democratizes access to powerful AI. It's not just for the giants anymore. I mean, think about it when the barrier drops from hundreds of millions to just a few million. Does that level the playing field or just, start a different kind of race?
That's the $1 million question, maybe the $5 million question now. And the industry titans are definitely reacting. Jan LeCun over at Meta.
Chief AI scientist.
He basically said, look, this isn't just China versus US. It shows open source models are catching up, even surpassing proprietary ones.
Interesting point.
And Satya Nadella at Microsoft, he noted the lower cost actually fuels more adoption. Makes sense.
It does. More accessible tech gets used more.
Even Jensen Huang at NVIDIA, you'd think he might worry, but he argues it could increase chip demand because more people using AI means more inference workload.
Yeah, that tracks. The usage shifts, but the demand for compute potentially grows.
But, okay, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Or at least risks.
This does raise an important question, definitely. The risks and considerations. There was that safety audit. Cisco's robust intelligence. Uni of Pennsylvania researchers.
Right. What did they find?
Well, they found DeepSeek R1 could be jailbroken. Basically, tricked into bypassing safety controls.
How successfully?
Under certain tests, a 100% success rate in getting it to respond to harmful prompts.
Yeah.
That's concerning.
Very. And beyond safety.
Data privacy. That's a big one. If user data gets processed in China, well, that raises immediate questions for companies in sensitive industries.
Or just companies operating under different regulations.
Absolutely. For anyone handling confidential or regulated data, using a model where data goes to China, that's a significant hurdle to consider.
Okay, so DeepSeek is shaking things up with this low-cost open-source approach. Meanwhile, what about the incumbents, like OpenAI? They've been working on GPT-5, codename Orion.
Right, and their journey seems a bit different lately.
Yeah, reports suggest the early tests showed far smaller performance gains compared to GPT-4.
Not that huge leap we saw before.
Exactly, and it apparently struggled with coding, complex reasoning. Some are calling it a performance plateau for just scaling up bigger and bigger.
Which, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it seems OpenAI has made a strategic pivot.
How so?
They seem to be moving away from just scaling up. They're focusing now on a new hybrid model. The goal is better reasoning and, importantly, multimodal capabilities.
Handling text, images, maybe other stuff together.
Exactly. Text, images, maybe audio, video down the line.
Yeah.
And this isn't just OpenAI. It reflects a wider industry trend. There's a recognition that maybe just throwing more compute power isn't the only answer anymore.
Smarter, not just bigger.
Precisely. Smarter architecture, different approaches might be where the next breakthroughs come from.
Okay, shifting gears slightly within AI, let's talk Palantir Technologies.
Palantir.
Yeah.
The stock performance has been something else.
Remarkable is one word. More than doubled this year alone. Made it the best performing S&P 500 stock of 2025 so far.
Driven by, as they say, bombastic AI demand.
And their Q2 results, reported August 4th, looked pretty strong. Broke $1 billion in quarterly revenue for the first time.
That's a milestone. A 48% year-over-year jump.
8th consecutive quarter of accelerating revenue growth. Net income more than doubled.
To $326.7 million. Solid numbers.
Plus, they landed that huge 10-year U.S. Army deal, up to $10 billion.
Massive contract. So strong growth, big deals. But there's always a but, isn't there?
Always. What's the catch with Palantir?
Well, it's the valuation. It's what you might call nosebleed territory.
Okay, break that down. What metrics are we talking?
Price of sales around 125. Trailing PE over 565 times. EV to sales around 78 times.
Whoa. For context, how does that compare?
Significantly higher than peers. These numbers suggest the market is pricing in years, maybe decades of future growth already.
So expectations are incredibly high. What do analysts think?
Well, the consensus price target is about $107. The stock's trading around $160.
So analysts think it's maybe 30% overvalued.
Roughly, yeah. And only 2 out of 12 analysts rated a buy. It suggests a lot of caution despite the growth story. The worry is that perfection, and then some, is already baked into the price.
Okay, but there's still optimism, right? I saw Jefferies noted its unique revenue growth relative to headcount, saying it puts Palantir in a class of its own.
Right.
Does that kind of efficiency justify ignoring the traditional valuation metrics, or is this just classic AI hype bubble territory?
That's the debate, isn't it? The bulls argue its unique model, its efficiency, its government ties create a moat that justifies the premium. The bears see extremely high multiples that are hard to sustain long term.
So a classic growth versus value dilemma amplified by AI excitement.
You could say that. It hinges on whether you believe Palantir's unique position warrants completely rewriting the valuation playbook. The analyst consensus, for now, suggests caution is warranted.
Okay, so these huge tech shifts, they're not happening in isolation, are they? They're bumping up against major things happening in the broader U.S. economy.
Definitely not in a vacuum. And we're seeing some really interesting crosscurrents there.
Like the Fed rate cut expectations. Reuters reported August 5th, markets are now pricing in, a 92% chance of a cut in September?
Yeah, 92%. That's up sharply from just 63% the week before. And Goldman Sachs thinks we'll see 3 cuts, 25 basis points each, starting this month.
Wow. What's driving that sudden shift in expectations?
Primarily, weak payroll data. Really weak. We saw major downward revisions for May and June's job numbers.
How bad were they?
Some of the worst revisions since the 1960s, if you exclude actual recession periods. That's a big red flag suggesting the economy might be cooling much faster than thought.
Okay, so weak economic data pushing towards rate cuts.
Yeah.
But then there's the political side.
Yes. And this is where it gets really interesting and maybe concerning for some.
You mean President Trump dismissing the labor statistics chief?
That and Fed Governor Adriana Kugler resigning. Both happened on August 5th.
Right. What are the implications of that?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, these actions immediately stirred concerns about politicizing the central bank.
Undermining the Fed's independence.
Exactly. There's a risk of eroding trust in U.S. economic data, trust in the independence of institutions. And that can really complicate future policymaking.
How so?
If markets start thinking Fed decisions are politically motivated, not based purely on economics, it makes reactions less predictable. It can undermine the Fed's credibility, which is crucial.
So a potential loss of confidence. How is the dollar reacting to all this?
It stabilized a bit after an initial drop, but the broader trend seems clear. Pro-growth currencies, Aussie dollar, Asian emerging markets, they're strengthening.
Because safe haven money isn't flowing into the U.S. dollar as much.
Seems like it. It highlights what some analysts are calling the fragility of the U.S. exceptionalism narrative.
This idea that the U.S. is somehow immune?
Yeah, that narrative seems increasingly challenged by both the economic data and these political interventions.
Got it. But the stock market liked the rate cut hopes, right? August 4th saw a jump.
It did. The S&P 500 was up 1.5%, snapped a 4-day losing streak. Dow and NASDAQ gained 2. Largely on those hopes, the Fed will step in and ease policy.
Were there any specific company moves that stood out on that day?
Yeah, a few interesting ones. IDEX Laboratories, They do veterinary diagnostics. Their stock just skyrocketed, over 27%.
Wow. Why?
Beat earnings estimates, launched a new product, and they benefit from that strong trend of people spending more on aging pets. It's kind of recession resistant in some ways.
Okay, interesting. Any big losers?
Autogad Semiconductor took a big hit, dropped nearly 16%.
Ouch. What happened there?
They signaled cautious customer spending, particularly uncertainty in the automotive sector. Shows how sensitive some industries are to economic jitters.
Right, and Paramount Global tumbled too.
Yeah, down 5.4%. Leadership changes happening right before that Skydance media merger goes through. Yeah. Creates uncertainty.
Okay, so tech disruption, economic uncertainty, political interventions. Let's zoom out one more time. How does this fit into the global picture and, other news affecting daily life?
It's important to see the wider context. Globally, tensions are still simmering. Look at U.S.-India relations.
The tariff threats over Russian oil.
Exactly. President Trump threatening substantially higher tariffs. India calling them unjustified and unreasonable. It shows how tangled trade, energy, and politics are.
Plus, ongoing conflicts.
Ukraine, the fallout from Gaza. These remain central geopolitical issues, constantly shifting the ground. And Russia formally ditching its INF Treaty self-restrictions.
That's a big move on nuclear arms control.
It is. Signals a less stable environment. And then you have acute humanitarian crises, like the reports of mass kidnappings at a Haitian orphanage. A stark reminder of ongoing instability in certain regions.
And back home in the U.S., besides the economy.
Well, you've got domestic political friction. That standoff in Texas over redistricting. Reports of infighting. Like an aide trying to oust a White House liaison from the Pentagon.
Shows the gears of government aren't always smooth.
Definitely not. And environmental concerns are front and center, too. Major wildfires in Central California, across Canada.
Leading to evacuations, terrible air quality.
Yeah, a direct impact from climate challenges.
Yeah.
And even smaller things offer a glimpse, like the Smithsonian temporarily pulling that Trump impeachment reference. Speaks volumes about navigating history and politics right now. And it's worth noting the sheer variety of other headlines. You mentioned Palantir's AI focus. But think about AI altering film endings in India.
Right. That's not just tech news, it's culture news.
Exactly. It shows how deep AI is penetrating creative fields, raising questions about authorship, authenticity. Then you have public health shifts, like the sharp rise in colon cancer among younger adults. Why is that happening?
Still trying to figure that out, right?
Precisely. And even corporate rivalries get reflected, like Google apparently mocking Apple's delayed AI features in an ad. It's all part of the tapestry.
So, listening to all this, it really drives home that these aren't just separate stories, they're interconnected threads, right? They weave together into this complex global narrative.
That's the key takeaway.
Hopefully giving you those aha moments about the forces shaping our world.
Exactly. So, to quickly summarize the core themes, we've got AI, incredibly transformative, democratizing power, but also bringing new risks, new ethical questions.
Then the economy, that delicate balancing act between policy, data, and now increasing political influence, creating uncertainty.
And underpinning it all, the constant flux of global affairs, geopolitical chess games, humanitarian needs, all demanding attention.
And that's really the value of doing this deep dive. It's your shortcut, hopefully, to being genuinely informed, armed with the facts, and understanding the so what behind the headlines. So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on. Consider this. How might the cost efficiency of open source AI, like we saw with DeepSeek, how might that intersect with those geopolitical tensions we talked about, especially around data privacy and global competition?
Interesting angle.
Yeah, what does that collision mean for the future balance of power technologically and maybe even beyond? How could that ripple out and affect your world? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We really encourage you to keep exploring these fascinating, fast-moving topics on your own.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a subject that's, well, it's going to define the next few years. The escalating technology tensions projected for 2025 and 2026. If you're looking for a shortcut to understanding the really complex forces at play, especially for things like AI, quantum computing, advanced biotech, you're definitely in the right place. Our sources, they paint this picture of incredible innovation, unprecedented even, but also significant friction. Think of it like a super fast train,
Yeah.
But the tracks are full of speed bumps.
Yeah.
And maybe some unexpected turns.
Absolutely. And our mission today is really to unpack all these complexities. We want to reveal the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight for you.
Okay.
We've sort of organized our deep dive into 4 big tension categories, all interconnected: geopolitical, economic, societal, ethical, and cybersecurity.
Okay.
But what truly stands out, across all our material, is artificial intelligence. It's not just, one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It's identified as the primary driver of change and disruption. And it acts as a foundational amplifier for so many other innovations. It speeds up the opportunities, but also the risks across every single one of those areas we just mentioned.
Okay, let's unpack that then, starting with the first big one, geopolitical tensions. So the sources mentioned 2025 is the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. Sounds exciting.
It does.
But it's clearly more than just, lab coats and research papers, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds much more like a strategic battleground for global power.
It absolutely is. We're talking about a race for quantum supremacy.
Right.
Which is basically the ability to do calculations that normal classical computers just can't.
Right.
And this isn't just about scientific bragging rights. It's fundamentally transforming whole industries. And it's becoming, a defining rivalry for the 21st century, particularly, between the U.S. and China. The key thing here is that these are dual-use technologies, meaning they have civilian uses, yes, but also really profound military applications. Our sources even predict that by, say, February 2026, some leading American tech companies will be getting pretty close to artificial general intelligence, AGI.
AGI.
Yeah. And that has huge military implications, which just intensifies this whole competition. And that's why you see nations now doubling down on sovereign infrastructure. They want control.
So this isn't just theoretical. It's not just competition over abstract ideas. It's really hitting something as fundamental as the computer chips that power, everything around us.
Exactly.
But this push for sovereignty, is that really feasible? Or are we just, creating new problems, new vulnerabilities by fragmenting the whole global system?
That's the core tension right there. These mounting geopolitical pressures, especially around Taiwan.
Yeah.
They are fundamentally reshaping the global semiconductor supply chains. No question.
Like the CBPS Act.
Exactly. The USGP Act is a great example. It's highlighted in the sources as a, quote, geopolitical masterstroke. It's allocating huge sums, over $33.7 billion in grants, $28.8 billion in loans by mid-2025.
Huge numbers.
And it includes a Buy American clause, which effectively pushes supply chains to decouple from China.
Okay.
Now, the aim is technological sovereignty, basically, a nation's ability to control its own tech future. But it directly leads to economic inefficiencies.
Like higher costs.
Like higher costs for advanced chips, yeah. And look at TSMC's project in Arizona. It just perfectly illustrates how incredibly complex and expensive it is to try and rebuild these really sophisticated supply chains elsewhere. It's a definite trade-off, security versus efficiency.
And it feels like this idea of sovereignty is spreading beyond just the physical chips too, right?
Yeah.
What about data? Or even the AI models themselves? This concept of sovereign AI seems to be gaining traction.
Absolutely. That's a really insightful point. Countries are increasingly demanding that data, AI model weights, even the computing power used to run them, stay within their own national or maybe regional borders.
Why? Privacy, control.
Both. It addresses growing privacy concerns, for sure, and it reduces dependency on foreign tech providers. But there's a big risk on the flip side.
Which is?
It could seriously fragment the global digital economy. It might increase costs and complexity for multinational companies, trying to operate everywhere. And it could lead to global AI systems that just don't talk to each other very well, less interoperable.
Like digital borders.
Exactly. A push for national control that might inadvertently build walls in the digital world.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. How is all this tech hitting, our wallets and our jobs? The sources cite some pretty eye-popping numbers about AI displacing jobs. Almost makes you nervous.
Yeah, those numbers grab your attention.
But is that the whole story? Is it all bad news? What does it really mean for us?
That's a crucial question. And no, it's definitely not all doom and gloom. While Goldman Sachs does predict AI could replace the equivalent of 300 million full-time jobs globally.
Which is huge.
It is huge, affecting about a quarter of work tasks in the U.S. and Europe, especially hitting administrative and clerical roles. Something like 69% of data entry tasks could be automated. And customer service, maybe 95% of interactions handled by AI by 2025.
Wow.
And this is a big But the same reports project, AI will add something like an extra $13 trillion to global economic activity by 2030.
Okay, so displacement, but also massive growth.
Exactly. The real insight here isn't just the numbers, it's the fundamental redefinition of what work even means. We seem to be moving towards human-machine collaboration.
AI augmenting people, not just replacing them.
Precisely. AI augmenting human capabilities. So roles that need high emotional intelligence, complex decision-making, think teachers, lawyers, they're actually considered pretty low risk for replacement.
So the potential is enormous, but are we actually ready for it? Our sources keep mentioning these scaling challenges. Sounds like there's some messy real-world roadblocks before this vision really takes off.
That really raises a key question. Can we build the foundation fast enough? I mean, the demand from generative AI and robotics is just surging.
Right.
And it's putting unprecedented strain on global infrastructure. It's exposing weaknesses in things like data center power, physical networks.
So it's not just about the cool software.
Not at all. Scaling AI means solving these messy real-world challenges in talent, policy, and execution. For instance, something like 62% of industry leaders, they expect labor shortages to be a major supply chain headache in 2025.
Talent shortages.
Yeah. And add to that, the tech industry itself has kind of shifted gears. It's moved away from hypergrowth at all costs to a much sharper focus on profitability. And that's disrupting the traditional funding models, especially for newer ventures.
Okay, and what about biotech? We hear so much about AI revolutionizing drug discovery. Feels like a genuine new frontier for medicine, but are there economic hurdles there too?
Oh, it's an area with immense promise. Truly immense. AI is projected to generate somewhere between $350 billion and $410 billion annually for the pharmaceutical sector by 2025.
It's incredible.
It is. We could see maybe 30% of new drugs being discovered using AI. That could significantly cut costs and timelines. There's a company, Exscientia, they had an AI-designed cancer drug enter clinical trials within just a year.
Amazing speed.
But here's the economic tension. Despite this massive potential, these emerging biotech firms, they face absolutely exorbitant R&D costs, and they're having real difficulties securing funding.
Why is that?
Well, there's a global downturn in venture capital, and government funding is also tight, with cuts expected in early 2025 that could slow things down even more. So the science is racing ahead, but the economic reality, that could definitely hold it back. It's a bottleneck.
Right. Okay, now let's get into the human side of all this. As technology gets more and more powerful, how do we make sure it's used responsibly? Our sources really emphasize that trust is the gatekeeper to adoption.
Absolutely critical.
Without it, even the most brilliant tech could just fizzle out, right?
Exactly. And a huge concern is bias. AI models can unintentionally, amplify the biases that are already present in the data they're trained on.
Which has real-world consequences.
Serious ethical and legal implications, yeah. Particularly in things like hiring. But beyond bias, there are other worries. AI hallucinations, that's when the AI just makes stuff up but sounds totally confident about it.
Yeah, I've heard about those.
Then there's liability, who's responsible when an AI makes a mistake. And of course, data privacy remains a huge issue.
So what's being done? Are there any clear rules emerging? Any efforts to get ahead of these problems?
Yes. Thankfully, regulatory efforts are starting to emerge. It's early days, but they're happening. For example, in Texas, there's the Responsible Artificial Intelligence Governance Act, SHAE.
Yeah.
That takes effect January 1st, 2026. And it explicitly prohibits using AI for manipulation or discrimination.
That's significant.
It is. And the EU AI Act, which is a big one, it specifically says that any AI-generated content must be disclosed as being AI-generated. So, transparency. These are really foundational steps towards building that public trust.
Okay, so from AI in our daily lives to, what sounds like killer robots.
Yep.
That seems very sci-fi. But our sources say these autonomous systems are actually moving toward broad deployment. What's the ethical minefield there?
The ethical dilemma is, it's profound, especially when you talk about lethal autonomous weapon systems or laws.
Laws.
The UN Secretary General has repeatedly called for a global ban on laws by 2026. He's described them as politically unacceptable and morally repugnant.
Strong words.
Very strong. The core concern is taking human judgment completely out of the loop in warfare. And then there's the terrifying potential for these things to proliferate, ending up in the hands of both states and non-state actors. It highlights an urgent, almost existential need for regulation now.
Wait, let's shift focus slightly. Think augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality XR. Our sources project over $100 billion in global revenues for XR by 2025. Sounds incredibly immersive, exciting even.
It does.
But what are the hidden dangers? What could go wrong when our digital and physical realities start to blur so much?
Well, while it is incredibly immersive, XR introduces some pretty significant ethical worries, especially around data privacy again, content suppression, who decides what you see, and the psychological impact.
Psychological? How so?
Well, think about vulnerable groups like children, adolescents. They might really struggle to distinguish what's real from what's virtual, and that could have potentially harmful effects.
Yeah, I can see that.
And even for the general public, the increasing realism of XR, combine that with potentially manipulative algorithms, it raises concerns about creating what one source called a flawed yet inescapable logic-driven society. So this means we don't just need data privacy rules, we also need proactive steps, like maybe consulting mental health professionals during the development of XR to really understand and mitigate these potential psychological impacts.
That's interesting. Okay, let's talk about gene editing. CRISPR medicine, it holds such immense promise for treating diseases, right?
Absolutely. Transformative potential.
But there are some really serious ethical questions about using it more broadly. What are the kinds of unintended consequences or dilemmas we really need to grapple with here?
Indeed. Beyond the practical challenges like delivering the therapies effectively or securing funding,
which we talked about.
Right. The ethical concerns are profound. There's the fear of unintended consequences, off-target effects, they call them, or accidentally removing genetic traits that might actually be protective in some way we don't understand yet. Genes are complex, you know. The sources mention the pleiotropic nature of genes.
Meaning one gene can do many things.
Exactly. One gene can influence multiple seemingly unrelated traits, so tinkering can have unexpected ripple effects. There's also the risk of creating irreversible errors in the human germline, and critically, the risk of making societal inequality even worse.
So?
By creating a two-tier society where only the wealthy can afford access to these powerful enhancement technologies, not just therapies, it's a serious concern. Leading reproductive tech organizations have even called for a, quote, 10-year global moratorium on heritable human genome editing.
A 10-year pause.
Yeah. They argue it's still far too risky and ethically fraught for clinical use. It's just such a powerful tool, it demands extreme caution.
Okay. And finally, under societal and ethical, something that really hits our shared sense of reality and trust in information. Deepfakes. This is where it gets incredibly unsettling, actually. Our sources show this startling surge in fraud using this tech.
The numbers are just staggering. Deepfake fraud cases. They surged by an astounding 1,740% in North America between 2022 and 2023 alone.
1,740%.
Yeah. And the financial losses topped $200 million just in the first quarter of 2025. And they've evolved. It's not just mass distribution anymore, it's surgical strikes. Like that $25.5 million fraud against the company Arup back in January 2024.
What happened there?
Apparently, everyone on a video conference call except the one employee being duped was an AI-generated deepfake.
That's terrifying.
It is. And here's the really alarming part. Humans, we're not good at spotting them. Our accuracy is only around 55-60%. Barely better than flipping a coin.
So what does this explosion of convincing fakes mean for our perception of truth? In business, in the news, just, in daily life.
Well, the sources are pretty blunt. The proliferation of sophisticated AI-generated content poses an existential threat to trust.
Existential.
Yeah. In business communications, definitely. In climate reporting, they mentioned deepfake greenwashing. And certainly in media and politics, the India-Pakistan conflict back in May 2025, apparently AI-generated deepfakes played a central role in shaping public perception during that crisis. It basically creates a kind of fog of war, but in the digital age. It just underscores how urgent the need is for robust verification methods. And regulations like that EU AI Act rule about disclosing AI-generated content, we're really entering an era where seeing isn't always believing anymore.
Okay, let's transition to the last major tension area, cybersecurity. You mentioned AI earlier, and our sources describe this rapidly escalating AI arms race in cyber defense and offense. What does that actually look like, this machine versus machine conflict?
That's right. It's estimated that around 40% of all cyber attacks now are AI-driven in some way.
40%.
Yeah. And experts predict that by 2025, we'll see a shift towards full-scale machine versus machine warfare. What that means is security operations centers the SOCs. They have to become these incredibly sophisticated platforms making really complex tactical decisions at machine speed just to keep up.
Humans can't react fast enough.
Not against AI-driven attacks, no. And critical infrastructure, think water supplies, power grids, financial systems, faces much higher risks now, particularly from foreign state-sponsored cyber warfare. Nations like China, Russia, Iran are often mentioned as pressing threats in the sources, and ransomware attacks targeting these vital systems, they're expected to surge in 2025 as well, which is deeply concerning, given the potential for real-world chaos.
And it's not just AI creating new threats, right? There's another big one looming. Quantum computing. Feels like a ticking time bomb for all our current encryption. What happens when our most secure data suddenly becomes, well, breakable?
That is precisely the concern. Our sources consistently highlight this as a ticking time bomb for data security across really all critical sectors. The urgency, the real race, is to develop and deploy post-quantum cryptography or quantum-resistant encryption before these powerful quantum computers become widely accessible to malicious actors.
So we need new locks before the master key gets out.
Exactly. If we don't win that race, the consequences for everything, banking, national security, personal data, could be catastrophic.
And shifting focus slightly within cybersecurity, it's not just about protecting your own systems directly. It's about the entire supply chain. How are cyber criminals exploiting those connections?
Precisely. Supply chain attacks have surged dramatically, up 431% between 2021 and 2023. And Gartner predicts that by 2025, nearly 45% of organizations worldwide will have experienced attacks on their software supply chains.
45%. That's huge. How do they work?
Cybercriminals are incredibly adept at finding the weakest link. They exploit trusted third-party vendors, maybe a software supplier, a service provider, to infiltrate the larger organizations they're really targeting.
So your security depends on your partner's security.
Exactly. It means cyber resilience can't just stop at your own digital front door. It has to extend way beyond your direct perimeter to cover your entire ecosystem of partners and suppliers. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And in today's complex supply chains, there are just so many links.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. Geopolitical, economic, societal, ethical, cybersecurity. What does it all mean when you put it together? It's crystal clear these tensions aren't happening in isolation. They're all tangled up, interacting. Can you give us a concrete example of how they sort of lock together?
Yeah, they're deeply interconnected. Take the geopolitical push we talked about for sovereign infrastructure and localized shipmaking.
Right. Driven by security concerns.
Exactly, aiming for national security. But, as we discussed, it directly leads to increased costs, economic inefficiencies, and fragmentation within global supply chains. So right there, you have this fundamental tension between national security goals and economic efficiency. You gain on one front, but you often lose, or at least face challenges, on the other.
And it really sounds like AI is sitting right at the heart of so much of this, acting as this accelerant for almost all these tensions, both the good and the bad parts.
AI truly is acting as a foundational amplifier. That's a great way to put it. It drives immense economic growth, incredible opportunities for human augmentation.
Yeah.
But at the very same time, it accelerates major societal risks like bias in algorithms, the spread of deepfakes, job displacement anxieties, and as we just covered, it massively intensifies cybersecurity threats. The sheer speed of AI innovation is unprecedented, and it means both its benefits and its dangers are speeding up simultaneously. We're definitely on a very fast-moving train.
Which leads to that crucial question. Are we just innovating way faster than we can possibly regulate? It constantly feels like the rules are playing catch-up.
That's exactly what our sources are calling the regulatory lag. Yeah. The pace of tech evolution in AI, autonomous systems, XR, gene editing, it just consistently outruns the development of adequate regulations and governance frameworks.
And that gap causes problems.
A significant gap, yeah. And it makes all the other tensions worse. It lets risks escalate without proper checks, and it really undermines public trust. Our sources stress this point. The cost of our inaction will be greater the longer we wait. There's a real sense of urgency here.
And this combination, the rapid, maybe under-regulated pace, plus the sheer expense of deploying some of these advanced technologies, could that lead to even more inequality globally?
Yes, that's a major concern highlighted in the material. The practical difficulties of actually scaling these advanced technologies. Things like the huge power demands for data centers, shortages of specialized workers, the regulatory friction we just mentioned. All this can limit how widely these technologies get deployed.
So only some can afford it.
In practice, yes. It means potentially only wealthy nations with strong political and financial backing can afford to play in really expensive arenas like cutting-edge chip manufacturing. And this inevitably risks widening the digital divide and exacerbating societal inequalities in who gets access to these potentially transformative technologies.
Okay, so given all these massive challenges, these complex interdependencies, the good news is our sources also provide some clear recommendations, ways to navigate this incredibly complex landscape. What are some of the key takeaways for you, our listener, to think about moving forward?
Yeah, there are several really critical priorities that emerge. First, and maybe foremost, is to prioritize responsible AI governance and ethics. Really focus on transparency, fairness, accountability, and keeping humans involved, human-in-the-loop validation for AI systems. Proactively address bias from the start. Because remember, trust is the absolute gatekeeper to adoption.
Okay, number one, responsible AI.
Second, it's vital to invest heavily in cyber resilience and threat intelligence sharing. That means integrating AI into cybersecurity defenses, securing critical infrastructure in those vulnerable supply chains, and very proactively exploring quantum-resistant cryptography starting now, not later.
Be prepared.
Third, organizations and nations need to strategically diversify and localize supply chains, adopt strategies like multi-shoring, not putting all your eggs in one basket, and invest in that sovereign infrastructure where it makes sense to build resilience against geopolitical shock.
Makes sense.
Fourth, we have to proactively address the coming labor market transformation. That means serious investment, heavy investment in reskilling and upskilling programs to prepare the workforce for this new era of human-AI collaboration.
Prepare the people.
Fifth, it's crucial to foster cross-sector and international collaboration on governance. We need adaptable, forward-looking rules for these emerging technologies. Maybe using things like regulatory sandboxes to test approaches safely. No one country or sector can figure this out alone.
Collaboration is key.
Sixth, we absolutely must invest in the foundational infrastructure and talent, prioritize investments in computing power, modern data centers, crucially, clean energy sources to power them, and robust talent development programs, education, training.
Build the foundation.
And finally, number 7, enhancing public digital literacy and critical thinking is paramount. We need to equip you, to identify things like deepfakes, to understand informed consent in these new immersive environments, build resilience at the individual level too.
Wow, that's quite a list, but it all seems incredibly important. What an incredible deep dive this has been into the technology tensions shaping 2025 and 2026. From that geopolitical race for AI supremacy down to the really intricate ethical questions around gene editing and that pervasive threat of deepfakes. It's just so clear we're living in a truly pivotal time.
The core challenge, really, as we've explored, is finding that balance. Balancing the immense opportunities for innovation and growth with the absolute imperative of responsible development, robust governance, and making sure access is equitable. It's a very tricky tightrope walk with incredibly high stakes.
So the final thought for you, our listener, what does all this mean for you? As technology keeps up its relentless pace, how will you choose to engage with these powerful emerging tools? And maybe what role will you play, big or small, in shaping a future where innovation truly serves humanity responsibly?